Welcome to Music in Mind Live. I'm Renée Fleming, and I'm very excited to welcome our guests today. They are, respectively, the directors of two national institutions crucial to our country's physical and cultural health. I can't imagine better thought leaders to discuss our topic today, leadership and collaboration in music, the arts, and science. Dr. Francis Collins is the director of the National Institutes of Health, the largest public funder of biomedical research in the world. He has led the NIH since 2009, appointed by President Obama. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2007 and received the National Medal of Science in 2009. Long before the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted his work at the NIH, Dr. Collins discovered the genes associated with a number of diseases and led the Human Genome Project, producing a map of our genetic inheritance. Dr. Collins called it a narrative of the journey of our species through time, with a detailed blueprint for building every human cell. He is also an accomplished musician, and it has been my pleasure to sing with him on more than one occasion. I'm also delighted to welcome Kennedy Center President Deborah Rutter, the first woman ever to hold that position. She has overseen the center's first major expansion since the 1970s with the creation of the Reach, a fantastic complex of new spaces intended for use as a community and professional arts incubator, learning center, and park. Prior to this, Deborah was president of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, one of the legendary top 5 American orchestras. She led the CSO out of financial decline to record record fundraising and ticket sales. And as executive director of the Seattle Symphony Orchestra, she oversaw the construction of its new home, Benaroya Hall. True to form, her achievement was also accompanied by early musical training in piano and violin. The project I brought to my role as creative consultant to the Kennedy Center consists of a collaboration with the NIH and NEA. We seek to provide a platform for science as it pertains to music and the arts, and both Francis and Deborah have been committed partners and colleagues. Before we begin, remember to submit questions in the comments section on Facebook. Music in Mind Live has now had 230,000 views in a few short weeks. Heartfelt thanks to you all for tuning in. I've asked the audience to submit videos or photos highlighting a person or program working at the intersection of arts and science. Please continue to submit work you admire or find especially helpful through the post on my Facebook page titled, "We Want to Hear from You." Here's a submission from Christina Noel on behalf of Larry Greener and his mother Norma, who suffers from Alzheimer's disease. Larry's love for music and unconditional love for his mother has inspired a Facebook community support group called Molly's Movement for Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregivers. Larry shares videos of his mother responding to music, showing one point of scientific research that music memory is the last memory to leave patients with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Norma Greener sang for over 25 years in the Baltimore Symphony Choir and taught piano for many years. Here are 2 short clips.
Here we go.
'Cause I don't care when I'm with my baby, yeah. All the bad things disappear. You're making me feel that maybe I am somebody. I can deal with the bad nights when I'm with my baby, yeah. Ooh, 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 ooh.
then oh why can't I?
Thank you so much, Christina, for submitting that. It's so beautiful. And her singing voice, her sense of rhythm, and especially the love she receives from her son is really very moving. So welcome, Deborah and Francis. What is your response to these videos? It's such an effective way for him to remain connected to his mother.
Francis, do you want to go first, or I'll speak emotionally if I may. It's just
Please.
it's so heartwarming. It makes you really understand that music is central to our identity. It communicates love and the connection between the woman and her son. I think it's her son, is so palpable. It really is very moving, and it really speaks to the emotional importance that we have with and the relationship we have to music. So thank you for sharing that.
I'm not sure I've heard a version of Over the Rainbow that was quite as sweet as that. What an amazing example of love between mother and son, and how music pulls people together, even in the midst of trials and difficulties. And this is a remarkable part of what we're beginning to learn about the brain, that there is something about music memory that is retained, even when other parts of what's happened from Alzheimer's disease have taken such a hard hit. Yet somehow music is there, and it can be just so inspiring to see the way that that can lift somebody out of a very closed-in space to become part of something, to take part in community, to smile again, to be enlivened. And if we could learn more about that, which is something we're trying to do right now with neuroscience research, kind of tap into those circuits that are still working, perhaps we could do even more for people's Alzheimer's functions that haven't fared so well, figure out how to do some reprogramming. But that was inspiring. Thank you for that video.
I agree. I'm really grateful for that too. I spoke with Connie Tomino today, actually, who is researching in this area. And she was telling me a story about someone who remembered someone's name after a period of time in doing this work. So she feels it's very promising that music can help people regain, not regain so much as maintain those connections, those neural connections. So we'll talk to her later. So this has been an unprecedented and challenging time for all of us, but also an explosion of creativity and such a desire on the part of citizens to connect through music and the arts. Singing on balconies, one of my favorites, and serenading healthcare providers. Have the arts and medical research both been strengthened by the pandemic?
Well, I would say yes, because people have been looking for ways to tap into something, to lift their spirits, to draw them together, even if they're somehow forced to shelter at home, as I am right now here in my home library, where I've been for 101 days, not that anyone is counting. And certainly this opportunity through technology now to be able to do those kinds of link ups musically, which people have learned in ways they didn't know they could do before, but also if it's possible to reach out and give that gift to other people, as people have been trying to do, singing from balconies or singing for healthcare providers. It is a wonderful tapping into the human spirit that is maybe one of the silver linings of what's otherwise a pretty challenging period, to be sure.
What is your response, Deborah? I find it so, I was surprised actually to see so much outpouring.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting between our fascination for hearing from individuals like Francis to reassure us that there's a future ahead of us, which I think there's a big obsession with what does the scientists say to us. The balance is we're looking to affirm who we are, to have some fun, to go back into ourselves. And so often that's coming out through the arts, if not 100% through the arts. I love seeing videos like that, but the ones that are really exciting for me is when I see a teenager standing on their front porch playing a work of Bach to their neighbors, or young people who are coming together standing far apart from one another and making music, I have been so inspired by the quality of music making that has happened on a digital level, that people are learning how to do it at home. So I think that this is really interesting that you bring it up, Renee, because I think our fascination with science and our respect for those who can really tell us the truth about what is happening to us, and then the desperate need to have music in our lives to replenish ourselves. This has been a positive time for both of those things.
It's quite pure. I agree. And these are powerful supports for us and on both ends. So you each lead your respective large national organizations. So what have been the greatest challenges for you as leaders during this pandemic?
Well, for me, as the director of the National Institutes of Health, which does happen to be the largest supporter of biomedical research in the world, the challenge scientifically has been to try to marshal all the resources and recruit all the talent and get everybody to work together in unprecedented ways to speed up the development of treatments for people who are sick with COVID-19, and especially to speed up the development of a safe and effective vaccine so that we can get through this. And if all of us can then benefit from that vaccine long about early next year, if all goes well, then we can get back together at the Kennedy Center and we can have the chance to do music in a space other than by a distant technological connection. And I'm looking forward to that too, even as we're trying to manage right now. So for me, it's 24/7 trying to make sure that we miss no opportunities to move the science forward. I've been involved in a lot of intense, competitive scientific projects in my many years as a physician scientist, but nothing quite like this, where every day matters, every decision matters, every result gets you a little closer, or if it doesn't go well, it gets you a little further away. We are really revved up here. I think I can say, in general, it's going pretty well. The science is actually moving at a pace I have never seen happen quite like this before, and especially getting all of the players together and not worrying about who's going to get the credit. Just get it done. And that's where everybody's at.
I'm so happy to hear that. We're all happy to hear that. Deborah, what have been your great challenges?
Well, you know, one of the last meetings I had in my office at the Kennedy Center was with the two of you. As it happens, it was also virtual. We were having a meeting in preparation for our Sound Health that was due to happen earlier this month in June. And we were talking with colleagues at the NIH and at the Kennedy Center, and sort of doing that guessing game of, well, how long do you think this will be? And it was literally 48 hours later that it was really clear that we needed to close the Kennedy Center. And I will tell you that essentially my life since that day, somewhere near the 12th of March, has been about reading tea leaves, looking into the future, and trying to figure out what best to do. The Kennedy Center is a very large, complex performing arts organization and education facility. And the hardest part really has been about setting up all of our colleagues as in telework, but then really understanding what we could do and when we could do it. I am so proud of the team, their creativity. Our digital stage has exploded, and I'm so excited about what's happening there. We're doing summer camps this summer digitally, virtually. We had a large span of programs with Mo Willems, one of your colleagues, as an artistic partner at the Kennedy Center. Brought in Yo-Yo Ma to do a special program. So the digital life has been really robust. That's why I know how successful and how creative folks are being. The hardest part, though, is really trying to figure out when we can be back together and live, and really understanding the impact that has had on artists, on the livelihood of artists, on the creation of their art, on the return of their art, and what the impact is to all of the people who are my colleagues who support our artists. And that part is devastating. It really is. It's been hard to understand what the impact is. You think about it, you know about it, you hear about it, but to deal with it firsthand, as we at the Kennedy Center have had to do, has been really hard. We want people to be safe. And so working on what it means to bring people back slowly, but in safe and circumstance,
Right.
has been a really important priority for us in these weeks.
How many employees do you each have under you? I mean, how many people are you responsible for in a sense?
Well, I'm going to go first because it sounds like a lot, and then he'll talk, and mine will sound small. We actually have we think about it in multiple ways. We have 2 orchestras, we have 600 administrative staff, and then we have thousands, literally thousands, who work around the center to support its activities, whether it's security guards or parking attendants or concessions and ushers. So I have probably upwards of 3,000 people who are involved in the daily life of the Kennedy Center.
It was
Wow.
9 constituents. It's probably more like 18 now with the reach, right? A lot of, yes,
Exactly.
yes, huge. So go ahead, Francis.
Well, yeah, NIH has a hospital. We run a research hospital. All the patients who come there are on experimental trials, most of them people with conditions for which medicine has no answer. So they come to us kind of as their last hope, and we try to give them every bit of that hope that we can with the brilliant ideas of our physician scientists. So we've been running that hospital, trying to keep it open, even though we've had to scale way back on anything elective. But then we have all the researchers working at lab benches and on various computer approaches to trying to model things. When you put it all together, okay, there's about 35,000 people that work in NIH, and only about 20% of them have been able to be on site until this week. This week, we started letting people come back very carefully, wearing their masks, that is required, keeping 6 feet apart, washing their hands, all of the things that you all should be doing too. We are being very insistent because we are, after all, a health agency, and we want to keep everybody healthy. And some people are really glad to be back, and some people are frustrated that they can't quite be on the list yet to make it back. And everybody's been incredibly hardworking and understanding and dedicated to keep the mission going no matter what.
I wanted the audience to have a sense of just how big your positions are and how important they are really for not just the area that we live in, but for the country and really for the world. Sound Health is a pre-existing national symphony program in which the orchestra performed at the NIH. It was expanded to include Music in the Mind events and convenings in 2017 when we all joined forces. What is the value of this collaboration to your institutions and audience?
Well, I'll start with that one, but Deborah has, I'm sure, a really interesting response as well. And people watching this might wonder, wait a minute, these 3 people, how did they end up on this program sounding as if they kind of know each other? Well, sure do. We are partners in this amazing adventure of trying to understand how music and the mind interact with each other and can be utilized for all kinds of health benefits, because that's part of it that I'm particularly interested in. We all got together recognizing that there was a potential here for some exciting things to be developed. We're making big insights right now into how the brain works. And at the same time, our music is flourishing. And we have this field of music therapy, which has been for many years bringing the tools of music to try to help people with a wide variety of challenges, whether it's PTSD or whether it's a child with autism or an adult with a stroke. How can music be brought to bear? And we all saw this as a golden moment of bringing together performers, musicians, music therapists, neuroscientists, and the general public to say, what could we learn together? And let's take these particular communities that admire each other and see if maybe they could do more than admire each other, learn stuff from each other, and do things in an interactive way. And out of that came this project, which has involved some exhilarating performances at the Kennedy Center that were not just performances, they were educational in the most interesting way, but also an entire research project at NIH now focused on how we could learn more about how we could bring music to bear on helping people with a wide variety of issues. We're now spending $20 million of that in a research program, unlike anything that's been done before. And again, some help on that, I should say, from the National Endowment of the Arts, another wonderful partner. And we're learning stuff. and stuff that's relevant across the lifespan. So I'm pretty fired up about this. And it came together because of this shared vision. And Renee, I got to give you a lot of credit for having been a really important spark plug for making this whole set of ideas come together, and for having the ability, from your perspective as well, simply the most highly regarded and best known soprano of our era, also to become a really good neuroscientist. Inspire other people to see how these disciplines fit together. It's been a wonderful run.
And you had a very enthusiastic response from all of your divisions as well, right? A surprising response.
A surprising response. NIH, hearing that there might be a chance here to bring music and the mind together, I had to sort of fend people off. Everybody wanted to be part of this because it was the right moment. And it was tapping into all parts of our brains as scientists, many of whom are musicians, to try to see what we could learn that would actually make a big advance possible in human health.
Deborah, what does this mean to the Kennedy Center?
Well, I started out as a child in school playing an instrument. It was a part of my education. And I grew up and had the great privilege for a long time working with orchestras. We always had this anecdotal information about the impact of music and participation in music and what it meant for school children, what it meant for learning, and what it meant for overall health and longevity. We always joke that conductors are the most long-lived because they have the most music in them all the time. So for us, at your inspiration and encouragement, Renee, to have this participation and engagement with the NIH, to have science validate what we understood as musicians anecdotally, and that it isn't just one type of music, it's any kind of music. It is about participation in music and the incredible impact on brain health and overall wellness. This has really opened new doors for us. We are the nation's advocate for arts education, and to really be able to now use the science that demonstrates the power of the arts, and specifically in this case music, on brain development for children, on brain health and aging for the rest of us, if I may, has been really powerful and opened up doors for us from a programmatic perspective, but for an advocacy perspective, and the way in which we think about how we develop our curriculum for our education programs.
That's such really great news. I love that. And I know as a performer myself, is that people, the audience in general, is just thrilled to learn about why they enjoy it, what it does to them, what are the scientific ramifications of that, and the health ramifications. And that's why I'm passionate about it. So Deborah, here's a clip of musicians of the Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra playing for healthcare providers. We all want to celebrate our caregivers. And I'm going to ask you afterwards what the response was.
Again, thank everybody here at the hospital for all the work they've been doing to try to keep us up on our feet and going. We have all been feeling very isolated at home, not able to do what we do normally, which is to play music for people. Even though we are forgetting about it in a way because everything's being online, live music really is irreplaceable and a very special thing.
I saw this on the local news actually and said, "Oh, it's our people." It's wonderful. Have you gotten a great response for this?
Yeah, it's really great. So that was at GW Hospital there in Foggy Bottom, our neighbors. We're all in our own community together and supporting one another. I'm really proud of the musicians. They did this all completely on their own, their need to perform. I mean, I don't need to tell you, Renee, but the need to express yourself as a musician is so powerful, and it is such a gift. We like to call them our citizen artists, giving back with their talents and their skills, and to express our gratitude. I cannot wait for the day when we can have that in a big celebration and thank you party to give thanks to all of our healthcare workers.
So we met in Chicago, and I have to say that, you know, having the privilege of touring around the world, I found early on that I could always get fabulous health care, because it turns out that a lot of doctors are amateur musicians. And Robert Smith, chairman of Carnegie Hall, who's been in the news a lot lately for supporting African-American owned businesses through the pandemic, it's always said that when he speaks with a group of CEOs, he asks them if they've played an instrument, and a surprising majority raise their hands. What does learning an instrument offer to our children?
Uh,
This has been probably the most powerful sort of information that NIH and you, Francis, have given to us, because we've always talked about the benefits of creativity and collaboration and really being able to experience the sense of discipline. But now the research is actually absolutely telling us that it is great for brain development. It helps with physical coordination. It boosts concentration and memory. It fortifies executive function. So the impact for young people in learning an instrument, learning to sing, it's about the group participation and the social skills that go along with it as well. But the list of benefits is extraordinary that comes out of this. And this is all coming directly from science. Thank you to you, Francis, and the NIH for bringing us together so that we can actually gather this information and use it in the advocacy. This is, you know, when arts programming was taken out of the schools, it was done for financial reasons, thinking it was sort of a, oh, that's the fun thing that they do, rather than actually the arts are what knit together all of the other skills that you're learning in the classroom. And it is through the arts that you figure out how to use the information that you're learning in the other classes. And thank you, Francis, and your colleagues for helping give this information to us and continuing to invest in it, because it's really powerful what the end result is. And that's for children, but it's also good for adults and seniors as well.
No, Deborah, you say it extremely well, and the evidence grows as another project gets done and then another project gets done, and the ways in which this influences childhood development get stronger and stronger, particularly recent work showing that musical training also really directly enhances language abilities, perhaps because language also involves rhythm and tone and all of that. You can see how that might be the case. And yeah, as you said, so many schools kind of thinking about musical training as one of those frills, and so it's oftentimes suffered under the latest budget cut. But that would be really the wrong thing to do. If we want our kids to have all of these benefits, musical training is a wonderful component of what every child ought to have access to.
So Francis, you and especially Anthony Fauci have become household names. Somebody even gave me a Fauci Pouchy drink. And I, you know, they probably haven't done that for you yet because there is a Tom Holland. So we just changed the first name. So does public opinion and your celebrity help medical research?
Well, yes, I suppose in a way it does, in terms of trying to put in front of people why this is such an exciting time scientifically. We're able to learn things now that I wouldn't have thought possible in my own lifetime, whether it's coming up with a vaccine to cure a terrible outbreak in maybe a year as opposed to what used to take 10 years, or whether it's coming up with a new treatment for cancer that is going to save hundreds of thousands of lives. Those things are all happening right now. Tony Fauci is indeed an icon, and he deserves to be. Tony and I talk every night, sometimes between 8 or 10 at night, just to be sure we're on the same page about this COVID epidemic. He and I are both on the White House task force. We are joined at the hip here, trying to make sure we're doing everything we can, both to push forward the research and also, in his case, to communicate about it, because people are hungry for information that is full of the realities of what we know and also willing to say what we don't know, because there's some of that too. So yeah, it does help, I think, having the public see science in a very visible way right now, occupying a space of trying to find answers in a certain way. We're getting there. So yeah, it's another silver lining in what is otherwise a difficult year, to be sure.
I'm so glad. We're all forced to now to be isolated, and I'm wondering if you can speak to the mental health consequences of that. And I know the arts have always been extraordinarily helpful to us when we need that soothing and that calm, but perhaps you can put a scientific spin on that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think this has taken quite a toll on everybody, being forced to give up the kinds of social interactions that are so important to us, and being in many instances sort of isolated all by yourself, or maybe with your family, or maybe just by yourself. And we're all looking for ways to kind of get through that. And certainly the arts have been an even more important part of our daily experiences as a result. Music in particular, I think people have found is a way to pull themselves out of what might otherwise be kind of an isolation funk. And we all are having some of those. And I particularly worry about people who already were struggling with some kind of mental illness, for whom this is the worst possible kind of to be put in isolation. I think many of those folks have found ways through music, through interactions with Zoom calls, maybe having a therapy session that way instead of face-to-face. But there's a whole lot of information out there if people are looking for it that can be helpful for those who are struggling with mental challenges right now. And I would imagine there aren't too many people who would say they've just sailed through this. This has been a really hard thing to get through. But we are going to get through it. We are going to get out the other side of this. I want everybody to realize. And when you are asked, 10 or 20 years from now, what did you do in 2020? You're going to have quite a story to tell.
That's right. Deborah, thank you for recommending that we play this. This is, speaking of comfort and calm, this is Puccini's Humming Chorus from Madamebutterfly, performed by music director Evans Rochester of the Washington National Opera. And this is the chorus and orchestra as well. It's so beautiful.
I'm Evan Rochester, principal conductor of the Washington National Opera. The Humming Chorus from Puccini's Madamebutterfly is a musical message of hope in the face of uncertainty. We, the Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra, the WNO Chorus, the K. Fritz Young Artists, and our families, this is my daughter Alice, we are waiting and watching for the moment that we can reconvene with you, our audience. Meanwhile, we are deeply grateful to those on the front lines saving lives every day. We sincerely hope that you are safe and healthy, and please know we will be back, making music more passionately than ever.
Who doesn't want to sigh after that? Giacomo
Yeah,
Puccini.
I feel better already.
I know, the most beloved, my breathing is slowed down, the most beloved opera composer in history. We're going to hear a wonderful performance from Dr. Collins as well in a little bit, but we're going to take some questions from our viewers for the moment. So Trevor asked an interesting question. Can the NIH All of Us research project give us any empirical data on the impact of music on loneliness?
Interesting question. So Trevor knows about All of Us, which is this program where we're enrolling up to 1 million participants as our partners to try to understand everything we can about health and illness and how people stay healthy and preserve their health. And this is already to the point of having enrolled 300,000. So we're on the way and asking them lots of questions, including about COVID-19 right now. So have we asked about how music has played out? I don't know the answer to that, but if we haven't, we should, because all these people are very interested in giving us information about what they're doing. And yeah, okay, good point, Trevor. Let's do that. We will follow up.
So from Sweden, Charlotte is wondering, she's saying there's a growing interest in sound therapy, for example, using audible sound vibrations on the biofield, or by listening as an alternative treatment for pain, depression, and stress-related disorders. Is there an interest from the NIH to promote research in this field of therapy?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, of the 15 projects we're currently funding through the Sound Health program with this $20 million that we've started out with, and we don't think that's the end of it, that's the beginning. There is certainly an interest in particularly how music can help people who are suffering from pain and depression. And we have some pretty good insights there about how that can work, but much more we need to learn. And one of the things we're excited about is bringing music therapists into that, because they have a lot of insight from their own experience about what has worked and what hasn't. And that put together with what the neuroscientists can tell you about which patterns of activity in the brain are associated with relief and which aren't, is making for a pretty interesting collaboration.
Well, Emmeline Edwards will join us on a future program, and she is one of our partners in this, and she's the head of integrative medicine at the NIH. So it's such a specialized world typically when I think of medicine, but this field, it acknowledges that we human beings are very complex wholes. Deborah, you might be able to shed light on this. Diane from Louisiana wants to know if music and its benefits can be brought to our scientists. So it's easy to promote music to the public who are already music lovers, but are there efforts to reach the medical community with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. With our really incredible partnership with the National Endowment for the Arts, we've actually now started a network. And we have a new home for that network out at UCSF with a scientist, a doctor, and a whole team. And this network will soon become truly a national network. It won't just be here in our whatever it is 12-mile radius between NIH and the Kennedy Center and your home, Renee. But the whole point of this Sound Health Network is to tell the story, to provide a national platform for the work that's being done, to share it for scientists, for music therapists, and for arts organizations, because we can't just do it amongst the three organizations with the NEA, NIH, and the Kennedy Center. No matter what your star power is, Renee, we can't quite do it sufficiently. We need that network of organizations really in our country and then now around the world to get the story out to scientists, doctors, and arts organizations.
Fantastic. And speaking of sharing, Jennifer in Florida says, I work with a neurology group. We just created a memory cafe for Alzheimer's and dementia patients, families, and caregivers. May we add a link to your Music in Mind live broadcast to their website? Of course, you can share it as much as you want. All of you, please do share it. The whole point of this is, and really what I am passionate about, is providing a platform for science. And that's what we're all trying to do. I have to ask you, Francis, tell us what is happening with the vaccine. So we'd love to have an inside track right now, whatever you can share.
Yeah, everybody is waiting for that vaccine to come forward, but also want to be assured that when it does, it's safe and it's effective. And so as much as we are speeding up the process by cutting out some of the unnecessary regulatory steps, we are making sure the science is absolutely rigorous. And it's good to know that there's not just one vaccine that's being tested. There are at least 5 that are under the process of moving forward pretty rapidly. And this means that all of these will now get to the point pretty soon of needing to be tested in a large scale trial. For each of those, we'll want to enroll about 30,000 people. So if you hear that this is happening in your community, sign up. We need your help to be our partners in figuring out how these vaccines are going to work. The first trials will start in the month of July, which I believe starts tomorrow. So we're close to that point. Then they will have to be tried out to see if they work. And we will hopefully know by the end of 2020 whether we have at least one of those that's looking really good. And then we'll start trying to make lots and lots of doses and make them available to everybody who wants one.
Well, I can tell you we all want to perform again, so crossing fingers. Most of us are at home and we'd rather be with our audiences. So last question before we skip to your performance, Francis. What is your hope for the future of music and arts research?
Well, I'll start. My hope would be very much that we can build on what has started here in terms of bringing these communities, these disciplines, these ways of approaching the richness of life together and learn from each other. There's this classic book that was written 50 or 60 years ago about the 2 cultures, about how science and the humanities are just going off in separate directions and not really learning much from each other. And we are standing against that with this particular effort, bringing the amazing gifts of music and the arts together with the amazing gifts of science. And to see that produce really exciting outcomes, I hope will draw more and more people into it. And out of this, we will come up with strategies that will help more and more people who are struggling with a wide variety of medical conditions, giving them a powerful tool through the use of music to live better lives. That would be a great future.
Well, actually, I'm going to skip into another a question that just came in for Deborah. I think you can, I know you can answer this question. This is from AR or R. Black Americans are facing a double pandemic of both COVID and systemic racism. Are there programs looking at the confluence of music, race, and healing?
Well, I think that is the question of our time, the question of our days. Certainly, it has been the concept of being the nation's cultural center and ensuring that there is a place for everybody and everyone's art has been central to the work that I have been doing at the Kennedy Center. Our social impact team has been, in these most recent weeks, thinking about how best to take the power and the strength of the work that has been done over these years, but to pivot then to actually think about healing and health, both the physical health and the mental health of all of us and all of us Americans, and to ensure that we can bring programs very quickly to the Reach and to the Kennedy Center that can welcome the conversation and the opportunity to participate. I think this is really important at this time. I think that this morning I was describing it as the moment of the revolution that has been building through the evolution of the work at the Kennedy Center. And here with our partnership, with the absolute mandate to serve all Americans, I look forward to being able to welcome a new stream of work in the Reach for arts participation for all Americans.
Thank you so much. I want to thank both of you, Deborah Rutter and Dr. Francis Collins. You are both inspirational to me and extraordinary, extraordinary leaders. Please join us again next Tuesday at 5 p.m. via my Facebook page, Renée Fleming Music, or the Kennedy Center YouTube channel. Episodes will be available later. And to stay in the loop, please sign up for the newsletter at my Facebook page or my website, reneefleming.com. In the next episode, I'll welcome 2 phenomenal musicians and thinkers, Mickey Hart and Sakir Hussain. Mickey's most widely known for his work as a drummer of the Grateful Dead. I saw him play to 50,000 people in Soldier Field in Chicago, with another 50,000 people outside the stadium. It was amazing. But he's also a brilliant musicologist who's created music based on everything from the prenatal heartbeat of his daughter to the rhythms of supernovas and quasars. Sakir Hussain is a legendary virtuoso of the Indian percussion instrument, the tabla, as well as a composer, music producer, and actor. He joined Mickey on the album Planet Drum, which won the first ever Grammy Award for world music. So with two brilliant percussionists, our conversation next week will naturally be about the power of rhythm and how we can harness it for human health and well-being. And now we have a clip of Francis performing the John Lennon song, Imagine, with a new text on his at-home blog. And I also love your Wash Your Hands song. You clearly have a desire to connect with the public using music. And we remember information far better when it comes from music. Your chief of staff actually writes a new song every day. And I want the public, when they see this song, to note the banjo on the piano, and the fact that you're a great guitar player. And when I first met Dr. Collins, he told me that he comes home from work and improvises on the piano. And we know from Charles Lim how great that is for brain health. So here we are. Thank you so much, Deborah and Francis, and please enjoy Imagine.
And we're going to do a song. Not a song I wrote. Well, the words were written by Kerry Wallenetz, an amazing lyricist. And the tune was written by, well, John Lennon. He's pretty good too. And it's a song about imagine. So yeah, here we all are. Think about how you could not have imagined this a few months ago. And now here we are. Imagine there's no traffic. Everyone's at home like I am. No schools, no meetings. Just Zooming or the phone. Imagine all the people wearing masks outside. Imagine all the nurses, aides and doctors too, working day and night now, all gowned up in the ICU. Imagine mitigation, flattening the curve. You may say it's just a virus, but it's not the common cold. And each one of us can spread it and put at risk the world. Imagine empty cafes. I wonder if you can, I bet you can. Rediscovering your kitchen. And 6 feet from your fellow man and woman. Imagine all the people keeping your neighbors safe. You may say it's overreacting and you want to break the quarantine. Don't do it. All the people have to join us to stop COVID-19. Imagine all the science, that's what we do. Treatments that give us hope. Lots of tests to help us before the world And imagine we're going to get through this, because we will.